Has the pandemic inspired you to write more or read more? Whether you're journaling or reading novels or short stories or content on the internet, a lot of people are telling me that they're reading more books and they're doing more writing. So, here on Writer Talks, every Monday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm Elizabeth Ann Atkins and I go live to interview the winners of our short story contests. Tonight I'm solo and I'm going to talk with you about writing short stories, our erotica short stories, and some tips for great writing. More and more people are coming to me and Catherine Greenspan, my business partner. We started Two Sisters Writing and Publishing 5 years ago, and we are about to publish our 28th book, which is now on Amazon, Life Along the Applegate Trail, A Tale of Grit and Determination by Linda Lockard. She's in Southern Oregon, and her story is all about Oregon history, and it's just a delightful story. You can go to the twosisterswriting.com/store and check it out, or just go to Amazon and you'll see it there and you can pre-order your copy. So Linda is an example of people who have a dream to write and they do it. They finish the book and it's on sale now. It's really, really remarkable and it creates a tremendous legacy. And so many of the writers who write short stories and enter them our contests here at Two Sisters Writing and Publishing, and they get published in our anthologies, our international anthologies of short story writers, featuring writers all around the world. Many of them are telling me that writing during the pandemic has been very cathartic, very therapeutic, very comforting, because once you get into your writing zone, it's like you immerse, you retreat from all the noise of the news and all the grief and all the anxiety and all the, all the things we have to deal with during this pandemic. And writing is a wonderful, wonderful way to not only celebrate and indulge your craft, but also to just escape. And that's what I love about writing so much and reading, because I judged our latest erotica short story contest and we will be announcing our winners very soon. We received so many phenomenal entries and they were all so different. Judging an erotica short story contest, or any short story contest for that matter, is really difficult because there are so many excellent stories and they're all excellent unto their own right. Like each of them has characteristics that are unique. Like one of the winning stories had me laughing so hard. And who doesn't love to laugh? Another one had a lot of like really difficult, grave moments in it, and that kind of weighs you down a little bit, but it's for the sake of the drama of the story, and it's beautiful. Another one takes an ordinary situation and creates something extraordinary out of it. Several of the stories did that actually, and that was really, really delightful to read. And so, before I get into the writing tips, I just want to commend all of the short story writers who are continuously submitting stories to the Two Sisters Writing and Publishing short story contests on our website. Now, until now, they have been fiction. But Catherine had the brilliant vision to expand into nonfiction for this year because 2020 showed us that truth is truly stranger than fiction, and real life provides some wild material for short stories, essays, articles, you name it. And that's why we've expanded our short story contests to be very expansive for this year. I'm going to go over the topics because we're still seeking submissions and we're receiving some really wonderful ones. So, our message essentially is that your voice deserves to be heard. Your voice deserves to be heard. And therefore, we opened our categories to nonfiction topics, writing styles. It can be a story, an essay, an article, a play, a poem, whatever your creativity inspires you to create, we welcome your submission. Now, we have different themes for each month. And as we've shared, January was for older adults aged 60 plus. And with all the baby boomers out there, we know you have some awesome stories, and we're already receiving many. These categories are actually open throughout the year, but we're just sort of introducing a new topic each month. So, February is African American writers. It's Black History Month, and we're receiving some phenomenal stories, articles, submissions. March is People of Color and Indigenous People. May is Immigrants. June is LGBTQ and Gender. And then July through December will be announced. But for now, these are some of the major categories that we're asking you to please write on and submit. So it's kind of like we want you to share what it's like to be me, what it's like to be me. And you can do that through a lens of philosophy, social justice, feminist critique, culture, politics, climate, environment, equity, inclusion, race and ethnicity, gender, gender identity, gender expression, sex, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, language, culture, national origin, religious commitments, age, or disability status, political perspective, race, color, national origin, age, marital status, religion, height, weight, or veteran status. And we want to thank the University of Michigan's program of defining diversity, equity, and inclusion to provide this comprehensive list that we are soliciting stories about. Non-fictional stories. If you have a fictional story, you can submit that as well. See, it's kind of like anything goes. We just want you to use this time during the pandemic that's so profoundly inspiring for reflection and creativity to create something, a message that you can share with others. And the winning pieces get published in our international anthologies every year. We also are offering a check no boxes contest. That means it doesn't really fit into a category. Catherine and I don't fit into a category, being multiracial, multi-ethnic. We've never fit into categories. We don't like checking boxes, and we don't like the concept of having to conform to the construct of a box for our identity or as writers. Therefore, we have a contest called Check No Boxes. So, whatever that means for you, please indulge your muse, go write something phenomenal and submit it. It could be your story, your essay, your truth. And like I said, all of these are open simultaneously. So you can just write what your heart is telling you, what your soul is speaking to you, and just go for it. It's so fun to unleash that divine creative voice within yourself and then look down on the paper and be like, wow, where did that come from? And I don't know about you, but right now, this time of creativity is so powerful. Like, I'll be doing something and all of these ideas just like bubble up. I literally sleep with a journal because I get all these ideas and I have to reach over and write them down because they can be so fleeting at times. Please write your pieces 400 words to 4,000 words maximum. So that's a pretty broad range. So you can pretty much write whatever you want. 400 words to 4,000 words maximum. And if you're submitting to one of the contests, like the erotica contest, for example, please do read what the submission guidelines are to have some better understanding of what we're looking for. Mostly, we want to give voice to your truth. We want to give voice to your truth and share that with people everywhere because we all learn through stories, and your stories are unique. And your stories are powerful. Your stories are a testimony of how you got through something, and that can teach another person. That can empower another person to power through whatever they're struggling with. So there's a mission. There's a mission in this, and we absolutely are so honored to showcase what you write to the world. Now, having just judged the erotica contest, I want to share with you some of the points that really impressed me. I'm going to do a deep dive on the winning stories and some of the stories overall in another show. But right now, I want to share with you a few things that really, really impressed me. And there's actually five things. One, first thing that's super impressive and fun to read in a short story is the element of surprise. When something happens that you're not expecting, like the story is chugging along in a certain way, and your imagination is kind of propelling you forward, like, oh, I think this is what's going to happen. And then all of a sudden, no, the writer just flips on you and it like creates some really wild twist of surprise. And that's awesome, especially when it's at the end. Like if you think the story's going to end a certain way and it's like, boom, no, check this out. I just love that because it shows that the writer is really flexing their creativity and their boldness and just taking that chance that I'm going to make this happen in the story, not what they're expecting. So just be bold and have some fun surprises because it's really delightful for the reader. The next thing is twists. So it's kind of like surprises, but it's kind of like the story is going in one direction and then it just totally does a 180 and twists in a whole nother direction. Like, whoa. And so that could be involving a character revealing something shocking about him or herself, or something wild happening out of the blue that changes the trajectory of the story, or a character going back on what their original intent was. But those twists are really fun to add like layers of texture of surprise, maybe anger, disappointment, shock, hope, happiness, relief. You want to evoke these emotions in the readers. And so the number one is surprise. The next one is twists. The third one is transforming something that just seems like a normal everyday scene into something really phenomenal. Like taking something like ordinary domestic daily living and adding some element that's like this firecracker and like really enlivens the situation, and the people are just kind of trudging along in their daily drudgery, and all of a sudden bam, something happens. And that's really fun for the reader because you're like, oh my gosh, what is going to happen now? And in erotica, you can just imagine how ordinary situations can turn erotic. And that's really fun because that's totally fantasy. And how many times have you been in an ordinary situation where you know it's not going to turn erotic, but in your mind, you're there? Like your brain is going in 10 directions, like, ooh, what if, what if, what if? Okay, so that's really fun. So when something really extraordinary, phenomenal happens in an ordinary setting is awesome for the reader. It's really fun. It's very escapist. Um, it's very entertaining. And then that's number three. Number four is when there's a major conflict. Now, when I first wrote my novel, my very first novel, my editor at St. Martin's Press, she said, make conflict the engine that drives your story. I was writing romance at the time and I wanted everything to just be roses and bubble baths and champagne. No, that's not good storytelling. There has to be conflict. Think about a soap opera, think about a movie. There's all kinds of deception, backstabbing, lying, cheating, stealing. In a movie, if the problem that's introduced at the beginning is solved right away, there's no story. The whole story is the whole movie occurs because the main characters are trying to solve the problem, which is the villain doing something. Now, a villain can be an actual person, or a villain can be a situation, a villain can be an internal struggle. but your story has to have a major conflict. And so in the erotica stories, there are lots of really cool conflicts, whether internal or external, and that's what made them pop because the characters are like trying to resolve this conflict, but it's very difficult. So make sure that your story has some kind of snap, crackle, pop conflict in it so that it's really high suspense. Your reader doesn't know what's going to happen, and it looks like it's impossible to solve this problem. So, the element of a major conflict. And another thing that I really, really loved in these stories, the fifth thing is dialogue. It's very, very easy to just do narrative and tell, but when you have dialogue, it enlivens the writing. And I see this a lot in first time writers where they just tell everything. She told him to go in the other room. Well, if you have her say, um, say that in a quote and use some really dramatic dialogue, then it's much more energetic in your writing, and visually it creates white space on the page around the quotes and the dialogue so that the reader's eyes are like going faster, and that makes it a more engaging, fun read as opposed to giant bricks of narrative that are dense and not reader friendly. When I see giant bricks of paragraphs, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that looks really hard to read and it looks like a lot of work. Whereas when there's dialogue, it's like slip, 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 you just go through it quickly and it's like fun and energetic and it engages me. Plus, it's multiple points of view, multiple voices, and that makes it much more of a textured, engaging read. So dialogue is number 5. I'm going to give you the bonus number 6 thing that I love to see and I teach as a book coach. And that is writing with your 6 senses. The stories that told me what the situation smells like, tastes like, feels like physically, looks like, sounds like, and feels like in the intuition, in your gut feeling, that's your 6th sense. So sight, hearing, touch, taste, smell, and your intuition, your 6th sense. When you write from those perspectives and include those elements, those descriptions in the story, it's so much more engaging for the reader because I feel like I'm there. Like I can smell the scent of the cappuccino or the cinnamon rolls in the oven or the um, wood burning in the fire. Let's just use a fireplace. That's a very romantic setting for an erotica story. The fireplace. Visually, you see the flames dancing, right? You see the flames dancing, you see the red glow. Feeling, you feel the heat on your face. Hearing, you can hear the crackle of the wood. There's that crackle sound, and then sometimes the pieces of wood will sort of break apart, and you'll hear that like sort of tumble of crumbling, burning embers, right? Smell. Fireplaces smell delightful, and there's different types of wood you can use for different scents. Um, Sight, hearing, touch. Well, you're not going to touch it, but maybe you're going to touch your lover's skin that's really hot from the heat of the fireplace, that you're sitting or lying next to. Sight, hearing, touch, taste, smell. You're not going to taste the fireplace, but if you're in a romantic situation sitting in front of the fire, you're maybe sipping on some wine. So you describe what does that taste like? Or maybe your lover popped a grape in your mouth and you describe the burst of cold sweetness in your mouth compared to the hotness of the flames and dancing in the orange and the red embers and the black charred wood and the white part of the wood when it's like on fire, you can see the white part, or whatever the mantle might look like, or the hearth. So you can see, and then the intuition, like, do you feel just so super cozy and safe? Or is there some element of danger or distrust or worry in the story that despite this beautifully romantic, cozy scenario, your character has this undercurrent of angst boiling inside of her? Even though she thought she was with her dream man, something in her gut just isn't right. So, those are your six senses in the story. And do you see how I took all the beautiful five senses, right? And the sixth sense created the conflict. So then there's that conflict, and the reader, of course, well, we love to read delightful, beautiful scenes, but now we're really engaged because there's this element of angst, and we want to know, well, what is it? What's she going to discover about him? Or maybe she's keeping a secret of her own that she doesn't want him to discover. And that's what's stressing her out, even though everything looks picture perfect on the outside. So, those are some ways that you can really, really engage your reader. Number one, the element of surprise. Number two, twists and turns in your story. Number three is creating something really phenomenal out of ordinary situations. Number four is making certain there's a major conflict in the story. Number five is dialogue. And the sixth bonus tip for great writing is write from your six senses. You can do this whether it's a poem, a short story, a novel. Doesn't matter how short or how long. When you incorporate these elements into your writing, guess what? Your reader is going to be very grateful and very engaged and very entertained. So, you know what? That applies if you're writing something inspirational, or if you're writing something opinion oriented, like argumentative, where you're trying to prove a point or persuade someone to do something. Because the more you engage people with these elements of excellent writing, the more convinced, persuaded, inspired they're going to be to possibly take action on whatever you're advocating. So these elements can apply if you're writing an op-ed for the newspaper, or some kind of essay, or some kind of call to action, or a column for your, or a blog post. Or even a social media post. But for short stories, novels, these elements really, really, really will crank up the conflict and the engagement and the power, crank up the power of whatever it is that you're writing. Because you pour your heart and soul into it, you invest the time and energy into it, you want it to be impactful, you want it to influence people in a positive and powerful manner. So I hope these tips helped you. Next time, we are going to announce the winners of our erotic short story contests. And please do continue to submit your amazing writing to our other contests. Your voice deserves to be heard, and the winning voices deserve to be published in our annual international anthologies. So, thank you for watching today. If you have any questions, Catherine and I would be delighted to answer them on a show. So please do drop a comment about any questions you might have about writing, or if you have any questions about our short stories. And also stay tuned for the continuing series of interviews of our winning short story contest writers here on Writer Talks every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time here on the Two Sisters Writing and Publishing channel. Please do subscribe to our channel. It really helps us showcase all the valuable content that we share, interviewing authors and providing information about writing. So if you're a reader, you want to check out our books. If you're a writer, you want to learn all the things we're teaching. So stay tuned also for 10,000 Things. Tonight we will be doing episode number 23. Every Monday night we go live at 8 o'clock Eastern Time to talk about the 10,000 things you need to know to write, publish, and promote your books. I'm Elizabeth Ann Atkins. I'm so grateful you joined me here today. Please do check out all the Writer Talks interviews here on the channel. We have so many writers around the world, India, Australia, the United States, and many more to come. So please check out the Writer Talks interviews with all our amazing short story contest winners, and please do keep writing and submitting. Thank you very much. I wish you happy reading and happy writing. I'm Elizabeth Ann Atkins, and I'll see you next time.